Hi, boys and girls. I'm back with chapter 2 today. So, time for Andrew. Hope you liked yesterday. Here we go. Chapter 2. The entrance hall was even gloomier than I'd expected, smelling of wood smoke and the ashes of long dead fires. It was damp and dark. Light filtered through a stained glass window halfway up the stairs. Art Deco, I guess. The kind of design my mother admired in old houses in Chicago. Except for the murmur of wind and rain, the only sound was the mournful tick-tock of a grandfather's clock. Where had my aunt taken my parents? I walked to the bottom of the steps and peered up into the shadows. Not a sound from the floor above. Ahead was a long corridor. On either side, doorways opened into empty rooms. Like me, the house held its breath and listened. What kind of figurative language was that? Just as I was about to call out, I heard Dad's voice. Drew's a good kid, he was saying, but he's so insecure. Worries, chews his nails, has trouble sleeping. Make sure he gets outside, exercises. Don't let him spend the whole summer with his nose in a book. Aunt Blythe murmured something, and Dad spoke more softly. I caught a phrase here and a word there. He's nervous. Fearful. Too much imagination. Mom added her whispered opinions to Dad. Scared of the dark. Witch under the bed. Monster in the closet. To stop them from saying more, I dropped my day pack with a loud thud. Where is everybody? I yelled. Back here, Drew, Dad called, in the kitchen. Without looking at my parents, I sat down at the table and took the glass of lemonade Aunt Blythe handed me. Too angry to speak, I stuffed my mouth with sugar cookies. How could they talk about me like that? Tell my aunt I was fearful? Nervous? Insecure? What would she think of me? Unaware I'd overheard his remarks, Dad began talking about his grant. Thanks to the university where he taught, he and Mom were spending the summer in southern France, excavating a Roman ruin. His precious dig, once he got started there, was no stopping him. He went on and on, describing fragments of this and scraps of that, things so old that nobody knew what they were anymore. To hide my feelings, I lowered my head and studied the table's scarred surface. Someone had carved a big, lopsided A into the wood. I ran my finger around its outline. Up, down, across, up, down, across. Aunt Blythe leaned toward me to see my discovery. A for Andrew, she said, like you. Without answering, I kept my finger on the A. Up, down, across, up, down, across. I was cutting it deeper into the wood with each stroke. Andrew, Andrew, Andrew. My name, Drew for short. Starting with Captain Andrew Joseph Tyler, we've had quite a few Andrews in this family, Aunt Blythe went on. You're his namesake, Drew, Dad said. Aunt Blythe smiled at my parents. Remember the fuss Father made when he found out you'd decided not to name Drew after him? Mom laughed. The way he carried on, you'd think we'd pick the most hideous name in the world for our poor baby. Imitating the old man, Dad struck the table with his fist and scowled. I'll not have a descendant of mine called Andrew. That's why we nicknamed you Drew, Mom added. We wanted to call you Andrew, but we shortened it to mollify your great-grandfather. I looked up from the A. Did it work? Dad shrugged. We never saw him after your christening. He came back here in a snit. Never even sent you a birthday card. While the others reminisced about great-grandfather's legendary temper, I studied the A. Catching Aunt Blythe's eye, I asked her if she knew which Andrew had carved it. Certainly not the captain, she said. It looks like something a boy might do when he's bored. A loud clap of thunder made us all jump. Under the table, Binky whined. Poor old dog, Aunt Blythe said. He's terrified of storms. Dad went to the window and peered out. Turning to Mom, he said, It looks like it's letting up. Maybe we should leave for St. Louis while we have a chance. We don't want to miss our plane. Turning to me, he hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Have a good summer, Drew. Behave yourself. Take care of your aunt and write to us. We'll see you in 8 weeks. I clung to Dad, pressing my face against his shirt, breathing in the smell of him. Terrible scenarios raced through my head. Plane crashes, terrorists, bombs, automobile accidents. The world was full of war and danger. Nobody was safe. Don't go, I begged. Please don't. What if something happens to you and Mom? Dad's arms tightened around me. His breath stirred my hair. We've talked about this so many times, he said softly. We were lucky to get the grant, Drew. Very lucky. I can't back out of the trip now. But there's history right here. You said so yourself. Why do you have to go all the way to France? You could set up a dig in the backyard. I'd help. I bet we'd find all kinds of old things. Medicine bottles, broken china, stuff our ancestors owned. I talked faster and faster, hoping to keep Dad from interrupting, from saying no, from leaving. But of course it didn't work. Resting his hands on my shoulders, Dad put some space between us. Chin up, Drew, he said firmly. No tears. You're a big boy now. I turned to Mom. Like Dad, she held me close, kissed me, told me she loved me. Tears shone in her eyes as she pulled away from me, but she didn't relent. Behind me, I heard Aunt Blythe at the sink, washing dishes and pretending not to listen. If I cried, she'd know the truth. I was nervous, fearful, whatever else my parents had said. Okay, go then, I shouted. Leave right now. See if I care. Mom reached out for me, but I dodged away. I don't need you. I don't need Dad either. To keep from crying in front of everyone, I ran down the hall, opened the first door I saw, and dashed inside. Too late, I realized the room was already occupied. An old man in a wheelchair sat beside a window. Of all the places I might have gone, I'd chosen great-grandfather's sanctuary. Who is it? Who's there? He peered at me fearfully. In the gray light, his face was skull-like, the skin stretched thin as paper over his bones, his eyes sunken. Just as startled as he was, I stared at him. Never had I seen anyone so ancient. I wanted to run back to the kitchen, but great-grandfather was speaking to me, one trembling hand raised as if to defend himself. You've come back, he quavered. But it won't do any good. It's my house now, not yours. Dad came into the room behind me and grabbed my arm. What are you doing in here? He whispered. Then turning to the old man, he said, Hello, grandfather. It's Ward. Remember me? When great-grandfather said nothing, Dad added, I'm Ed's son, your grandson. Great-grandfather made an inarticulate noise and shook his head. Edward's dead, he muttered. Died years ago, in a war. I know, Dad said. I know. I miss him too. Taking great-grandfather's hand, he studied the old man's face for a moment. This is my son, Drew, your great-grandson, he said softly. I'm sorry he startled you. But you know how boys are, a little thoughtless sometimes. A little great-grandfather yanked his hand away from Dad. Scowling at me, he banged the floor with a cane. Don't let him near me. I know all about him. Aunt Blythe rushed to his side. What's wrong, Father? Drew didn't mean... Great-grandfather turned furiously to his daughter. He's a wicked boy. Send him back where he came from. I won't have him here. Aunt Blythe gestured to Dad, and he led me out of the room. As soon as the door closed behind us, he said, What on earth prompted you to bother your grandfather? I just wanted to get away from you. I mumbled. I didn't know he was in there. I tried to keep my voice from shaking, but it quavered anyway. Great-grandfather had frightened me half to death. From the look on his face, you scared the wits out of him, Dad said. I wonder who the devil he thought you were. I shuddered. Someone he didn't like very much. That's for sure. Aunt Blythe stepped into the hall and gave me a sympathetic hug. Lord knows who Father mistook you for, she said. He drifts back and forth through the years as if time doesn't exist for him. At least not as we understand it. She looked sad and tired, older too, worn down by worry. Contrite, I leaned against her. I'm sorry I upset him. Don't worry. Aunt Blythe patted his hand to show me she understood. Patted my hand to show me she understood. Father's probably forgotten about it already. Mom was waiting for us up on the porch. The worst of the storm has passed, but the rain still fell steadily. It gurgled in the downspouts and flowed over the edges of the gutter, creating a curtain of falling water. The wistaria's purple petals speckled the floor like confetti and clung to an old wooden swing. On the walls, ivy rustled as if the house were telling itself secrets. My parents hugged and kissed me again, but they made it clear they were really leaving me this time. Tears wouldn't keep them. Neither would arguments. Trying to be brave, I stood on the porch and watched the car splash downhill, through the puddles in the driveway. Aunt Blythe touched my shoulder gently. Let's go inside, Drew. I'll take you to your room. While I fix you dinner, you can unpack and make yourself at home. Reluctantly, I followed my aunt into the shadowy hall. Now that Mom and Dad were gone, the house seemed bigger, darker, scarier. The wind and rain made sad, searching sounds. Branches tapped the windows like homeless souls begging to come in from the cold. Overhead, the floor creaked as if someone were tiptoeing from room to empty room. Startled by the noise, I glanced at my aunt, but she was striding up the steps ahead of me, talking cheerfully about the things we'd do when the rain stopped. If she sensed the presence of unseen beings, she gave no sign of it. Down the hall behind a closed door, Great-grandfather coughed. Thinking he might emerge from his lair, I raced upstairs after Aunt Blythe. Nothing, not even a ghost, could frighten me more than that old man. All right, so that is where we leave off for today. And now we've got Andrew, who is in this house that really seems to be coming to life. You can tell with the figurative language that Mary Downing Hahn is using, personification, that the house is kind of alive. What do you think is going to happen next? Why do you think great-grandfather disliked Drew so much? Who did he think he was? What do you think is going to happen next? I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.